Hello, my name is Jonathan Rangel. I'm 29 years old and I am a junior going on senior here at Cal State Dominguez Hills, and I'm a biochemistry major. I hopefully plan to graduate in the spring of 2026. So I plan to be an RA, and I think I'd be a great RA just because of my maturity. I am 29 years old, so I do know my right from wrong. I have a really good integrity, so I know to do the right thing when no one's watching. And I've also lived on campus for a year, so I do know what the campus life here, residential life, is like here on campus. So I have been trying to get involved on some of the events that we have on campus, and whenever I'm not able to, I still kind of like know about what's going on in general, stay updated on my email communications and everything that's going on. I specifically think I would be a great RA for here, a Toro RA, just because I've always wanted to be more involved as a student, but as more so with other students. So I think I'd be a great student mentor, just because of my experience. I've been in and out of school. I've been in the workforce for a long time. I've had 10 years experience in one industry, the optical industry, which is with glasses and contact lenses. But also because of my experience with peer counseling. I started I believe it was my junior year in high school back in 2013, and I learned how to become a peer counselor. Once I was a senior in high school, I became an actual peer counselor and had my own cases to manage with students that might have things going on back at home. Sometimes we would have students come in from maybe some fights or altercations during lunchtime, and we would have to sit them down with discipline and have conflict mediation. So I do have experience with that as well. And also, I've been a manager for about 5 or 6 years for an optometry office that has grown from 4 to 5 practices to 9 practices. So it's been a great accomplishment, and I do plan to be an optometrist myself when I finish with my degree and go to optometry school. But I do believe that my experience as a manager has really helped give me a better leadership skill, because I think that there's a lot of potential in other students as well who are leaders, but once you obtain a leadership role, there's still much more to learn within the role as a leader that I think that has helped me grow as well. So I believe I can put a lot of the things that I've learned in my professional career to my RA position here on campus, if that's welcome. Let's see how I envision my role as an RA. Well, I'm definitely welcoming and inclusive to all students. I try my best to kind of smile and make sure that my presence is very welcoming around campus already. And so that way maybe some different people will get to know me. I've helped some students with their resumes and trying to get jobs already because they're younger than me, and I do know that, getting their first job is really important. I think it also keeping a positive and inclusive environment is so important because that spreads on campus. When you create a great and welcoming environment for the students here with student living, it can kind of flourish out to on campus. And so imagine when another student asks, "Hey, how do you like living in the dorms?" You definitely want a student to be like, "Oh, I love living on campus. It's so great," rather than a negative response. So I do strongly think it's so important to promote student living and make sure that we do create a space that students love to live in. Some of the challenges I think that are gonna come in the next year, that I think some are already facing now, are health and safety issues. I do believe that there are a lot of healthy options for food and beverage and things like that. I think accessibility can be a little bit better in the dorm. I know that we're getting a dining hall next year, so that's really exciting. But definitely keeping in mind a lot of health would be really important. I think we do have some events that occur within residential life, which is really cool and fun and engaging for students. But also, I think maybe finding some like outdoor excursions we can do, even exploring our own campus. There is on-campus tours, but imagine going for a walk like once a week or in the mornings at a certain specific time, almost like a walk or exercise club, if you will, but it's specifically for the residents on campus. It's a way for us to get comfortable with our surroundings. And then as for safety, I know that there's been a lot of different changes with like the entrance and exits of the building, and hopefully those things can be changed or bettered in the future. I think safety is super duper important, but I think it starts with the students. It definitely starts with their knowledge and their own responsibility to make sure that they're doing what's necessary to keep themselves safe. Because staff and protocol and campus security can only do so much. It really does take the important decision making for students to make sure they do the right thing to prevent them from being in situations that can potentially get them into some trouble. Not to say that there are people who are getting into trouble normally, but it's just, I think it's really important that we maybe have more awareness. And so spreading awareness can be possibly a small presentation or something, things to possibly avoid. I know that guests were previously welcome, but maybe also think like, I've never had a presentation that says what type of guest is a good idea to have over versus not. You know, maybe a one night stand after a bar or a one night stand after this might not be the best person to have as a guest because you don't know this person, whereas someone you met after class in school in your extracurricular activity would be a great person to have as a guest. It really just depends. And even though that might be common sense or basic knowledge, it isn't always for everyone. And I think everyone comes from different background, and that's part of what we can do as the RAs in the community to just make sure you cannot assume that everyone knows everything. Everybody knows everything. It's important to just acknowledge everyone comes from different backgrounds, and we can positively educate and protect as best we can with keeping that in mind, that nobody has like the same background as ourselves. And lastly, respect for others. I have found that there hasn't been too much respect between some of the students. I've heard many arguments. I've heard some things that aren't really very positive, as well as vandalism and things that are happening in the bathrooms that are just not very clean. So I think what's really important is to also have a presentation as an incoming student. It's really quick and small and easy, but kind of almost like etiquette for living with others. I think it's a very simple thing to say, hey, you know, it's possible that you have lived by yourself or with family, but now it's time to live with others. And so here are some tips and tricks with living with others. And then it might be just culturally that we respect maybe volume levels, like if certain people like music or some people don't like music, just things like that. So that would be what I would say. And then as far as how I would help others academically, emotionally, or socially, I mean, resources. Resources are the biggest way to help students because the resources are there. This school has been one of the best schools I've ever known to have resources for students. So I would promote study sessions and tutoring for academic struggling students. Emotionally, I'm an active listener, so I would definitely personally be there for them, but I could also refer them to other resources such as Toro Life. They do a great job at helping students manage everything from school to work to other social things. And then also just making sure students are in the know and getting to know the students. I even had this idea that if some students are not really feel like they're confident enough to come to me about maybe some of their social struggles, definitely a suggestion box or survey that might I could create to help them kind of engage with me, to let me know things that they would like to share with me. That also leads into one of the examples of a time that I successfully promoted diversity and inclusion. In the workplace, it's sometimes very, very difficult to express something or any issues or a suggestion to maybe someone that you might not have a great opinion of, or it's possible just to you just want to make things anonymous because you wouldn't want to be judged. A lot of people don't want to be judged, so that's completely understandable. And so I created a suggestion box. I want everyone's voice to be heard. I want everyone to be considered. I think everyone should be inclusive and included, and promote the diversity in a workplace as well as in a living place if I become an RA. And so one of the things is a suggestion box. It's super, super helpful. And it's even more important to consider it if you get a lot of the same suggestion. Just some food for thought. And then how can I provide an example that it became a difficult situation that I demonstrated discretion and maintained my confidentiality and things like that? Well, or to enforce a policy. And with empathy, this happens all the time as a manager. But one example I could really think about and I can tell you about is when I had to write up one of my friends at work. I can be friends with a lot of people. I'm a very friendly person, outgoing person, but it's really important to separate. It goes back to integrity. It's really important to separate responsibility and duty with your friendships. And it is hard to do that, to kind of discipline and kind of make sure that we're all on the same page. But sometimes it's necessary. And when this happened, I tried very, very hard to kind of casually, let my friend know, hey, let's make sure we're doing this, just so that way it wasn't on the record multiple times. And I felt like that was enough grace. And it just got to the point where my role as a manager would be kind of viewed like I wasn't fit if I didn't take action and kind of, put my foot down with the situation. So it's not the funnest thing to do, but it's definitely necessary, and I'm very capable of doing that. And so writing up my friend was one of the hardest things to do, but it had to be done. Let's see, another way, as far as handling emergencies and crisis situations, I'm very good at that. My own family has had some health scares in the past, and I'm very, very strong-headed, and I just focus on the issue at hand and figure out the problem and how to handle it. So I'm definitely not afraid to take action, and I'm definitely not a bystander. So definitely that's one thing I would highly, highly highlight, is I'm not a bystander. If I see a problem, I will do something about it, or say something about it. An example of that was just today. In class, I can tell that my professor was very, very frustrated with two students who were chit-chatting in the back of the classroom, and I sat in the front. But instead of the professor actually speaking up, and I can tell by her physical behavior, she was very upset with those students, but she never spoke up about it. But I can tell she was bothered. Rather than stopping the lesson and me address the students directly in front of the entire class, that might be something I would have wanted to do, but it's definitely not okay for them. That would probably be embarrassing for them. So with empathy and respect, I definitely, after class, pulled them aside and said, hey, you guys, I just wanted to let you know that I know you guys were having a discussion, but the professor was not happy about it, and she was definitely not happy with you guys. I just wanted to bring it to your attention, so maybe next time in class, you guys will be a little bit more mindful of how loud you're speaking or how much you're speaking while the professor is doing her lesson. And they respected me so much more that I came to them with that. So I think that's another thing to consider. And lastly, confidentiality. I keep things super airtight. It's been something I've had to do as a manager in my professional career and as a peer counselor when counseling students, and it's something I plan to do for the rest of my life. Confidentiality is so important and it helps build trust and respect, and so that's definitely not going to be any challenge for me to do as an RA. Anyway, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and I hope to hear back from you soon. Go Toros. Thank you.